Have you ever wondered why some of the strongest, most independent souls, those who brave the fiercest battles in life, often find themselves ensnared by the very reflection they project into the world? It's a paradox, isn't it? The warrior, forged in the crucible of adversity, who conquers external foes with unwavering resolve, can become utterly captivated, even entrapped, by the image they present, the facade they meticulously craft for the world to see. This isn't merely vanity. It's a deep-seated psychological phenomenon, a dance with the self that often conceals profound pain and an aching emptiness beneath the polished surface. This love affair with the mirror, in its many forms, is a silent battle fought within the chambers of the soul, a testament to the intricate interplay between ego and shadow, persona and true self. Consider the tale of Lyra, a woman whose name echoed with the strength of ancient epics. From an early age, Lyra was taught that vulnerability was a weakness, that emotions were liabilities to be meticulously hidden. Her childhood was a landscape of unspoken expectations, where academic prowess and athletic victories were the only currency of affection. Her parents, well-meaning but emotionally distant, praised her achievements, never her being. Lyra learned to build walls, brick by emotional brick, until she stood as an impenetrable fortress. She excelled in everything she touched, a formidable lawyer by day, a relentless marathon runner by dawn. Her professional life was a testament to her unwavering drive. She demolished opposing arguments with surgical precision and closed deals with a steely gaze that few dared to challenge. In the eyes of the world, Lyra was the epitome of success, the unyielding warrior. Yet, beneath the meticulously tailored suits and the perfectly coiffed hair, a different story was unfolding. Lyra's greatest adversary wasn't in the courtroom. It was in her own reflection. Every morning, she would spend an hour meticulously preparing her appearance, not just for presentation, but for validation. The crispness of her shirt, the subtle shimmer of her eyeshadow, the precise knot of her tie, each detail was a shield, a declaration of control, a desperate plea for approval. She measured her worth by the admiring glances of colleagues, the envious whispers of competitors, the awe in the eyes of new acquaintances. Her social media was a curated masterpiece, a highlight reel of triumphs, exotic vacations, and perfectly orchestrated gatherings. Every post was a subtle affirmation of her constructed identity, a digital mirror reflecting back the image of the invincible Lyra. She was constantly performing, even for herself. One evening, after closing a monumental case that solidified her reputation, Lyra found herself alone in her opulent apartment. The celebratory champagne tasted flat. The echoes of congratulations felt hollow. She walked to the full-length mirror in her bedroom, gazing at her reflection. For a fleeting moment, the mask slipped. The exhaustion etched around her eyes, the faint tremor in her hands, the profound loneliness that settled in her chest. It all surfaced. She saw not the triumphant warrior, but a weary soul, desperate for genuine connection, for a moment where she could simply be, without the burden of perfection. A small, unsettling incident had occurred earlier that week. During a high-stakes negotiation, an older, more seasoned lawyer, known for his piercing insights, had looked at her with an unnerving calm and said, "Ms. Evans, you carry a heavy shield. Do you ever wonder what lies beneath it?" The comment, delivered without malice, had pricked at something deep within her, a truth she had rigorously suppressed. It was as if he had seen through the layers of her meticulously constructed persona, glimpsing the vulnerable core she fiercely protected. Lyra had dismissed it then, attributing it to his eccentric nature, but the words lingered, a tiny, persistent echo in the quiet corners of her mind. Her relationships were as carefully curated as her image. Dates were chosen based on their perceived status and how they would reflect on her. Deep conversations were avoided, emotional intimacy deemed too risky. She mistook admiration for love and control for connection. Whenever a partner attempted to breach her emotional defenses, to see the real Lyra, she would instinctively recoil, creating distance, sometimes even ending the relationship abruptly. The idea of truly being seen, flaws and all, was terrifying. It threatened to shatter the carefully constructed mirror, revealing the shadow self she had long disavowed. Lyra's internal dialogue was a relentless jury. Every perceived misstep, every moment of uncertainty, was met with a scathing critique. You're not good enough. You're weak if you show emotion. They'll see through you. This internal torment was a product of her early conditioning, a manifestation of the inner critic, often a projection of parental or societal expectations internalized during childhood. She was, in essence, constantly battling her own reflection, not the physical one, but the internal one that judged and condemned. The external mirror became a tool to reinforce the illusory perfection, to momentarily quiet the cacophony of self-doubt. Yet, the relief was fleeting, a temporary reprieve before the next battle with her own perceived inadequacies. The concept of the persona, as Carl Jung theorized, is particularly relevant here. The persona is the mask we wear in public, the socially acceptable archetype we present to the world. For Lyra, her warrior persona was so perfectly honed, so flawlessly integrated into her identity, that she had begun to believe it was her entire self. The danger, Jung warned, lies in identifying too strongly with the persona, forgetting that it is merely a functional adaptation to society, not the entirety of one's being. When this happens, the shadow, the repressed, unacknowledged aspects of the self, including insecurities, fears, and vulnerabilities, grows in power, often manifesting as anxiety, chronic dissatisfaction, and a pervasive sense of emptiness. Lyra's relentless pursuit of external validation, her constant need for the mirror to reflect back an idealized image, was a desperate attempt to keep her shadow locked away, to deny its very existence. What happens, then, when the warrior falls in love with the mirror? It's not a love born of genuine self-acceptance, but a desperate attachment to an idealized, often fragile, external representation. This can lead to a life lived on the surface, devoid of true connection and authentic joy. For Lyra, the pain point was a profound loneliness, a spiritual hunger for authenticity that her external achievements could never sate. She was a master of the external, but a novice in the realm of her own inner landscape. The warrior archetype, when balanced, embodies strength, courage, and perseverance. However, when it becomes overly dominant, when the need for external conquest eclipses the internal journey, it can lead to a rigid, emotionally constricted existence. This warrior, perpetually in battle mode, even against their own perceived flaws, can become trapped in a cycle of proving and performing. The mirror, in this context, becomes both a refuge and a refuge for the idealized self, and a cage for the authentic self yearning for liberation. So, if you find yourself constantly seeking external validation, if your worth feels tethered to how others perceive you, or if you feel a relentless pressure to be perfect, pause. Ask yourself, what lies beneath the polished surface? What parts of yourself have you disowned in the pursuit of an ideal? The path to healing begins with acknowledging that the mirror reflects only a fraction of who you are. True strength lies not in the impenetrable facade, but in the courage to dismantle it, to embrace your vulnerabilities, and to recognize that your inherent worth is not contingent on external accolades or reflections. Your journey towards authentic self-love starts the moment you dare to look beyond the surface and into the depths of your own complex, magnificent soul. The warrior's gaze, once fixed on the external mirror, often misses the profound depths of its own internal landscape. If the first aspect of this captivating title speaks to the projection of a formidable self, then the mirror itself, the second aspect, beckons us to consider its true nature. What is this mirror that so enthrallingly captures the warrior's attention, and what hidden truths does it reflect back? It is, in essence, the very construct of identity, the elaborate tapestry woven from external validations and internalized beliefs, often so tightly bound to societal expectations that it suffocates the authentic self. This mirror is not merely an object. It is a psychological echo chamber, amplifying our deepest desires for acceptance while simultaneously reflecting our most profound fears of inadequacy. Consider the profound insight offered by William James, the father of American psychology, who famously stated, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes." This seemingly simple declaration holds a universe of meaning for the warrior captivated by their reflection. The mirror, in this context, is not just what we see, but how we interpret what we see, how we internalize the world's responses to our projected self. For many, this interpretation is skewed by a history of conditional love, unresolved trauma, or a pervasive societal narrative that equates worth with achievement and outward appearance. The warrior, having built their fortress on external validation, becomes fiercely protective of the image the mirror reflects, believing that any crack in its surface signifies a catastrophic failure of their entire being. Imagine a highly successful entrepreneur, Marcus, whose empire was built on sheer willpower and an unshakable belief in his own capabilities. From a young age, Marcus had been told he was destined for greatness, that anything less than extraordinary success was a personal failing. His parents, both high achievers, instilled in him a relentless drive and a subtle, yet pervasive, fear of mediocrity. This early conditioning fostered a powerful ego, a self-concept so intertwined with his achievements that his very identity was predicated on constant upward mobility. For Marcus, the mirror was the financial statements reflecting his burgeoning wealth, the accolades from industry peers, the envious glances directed at his luxurious lifestyle. Yet, behind the gleaming facade of success, Marcus was constantly battling a gnawing anxiety. He worked relentlessly, driven by an insatiable need to expand his empire, not for the joy of creation, but for the fear of stagnation. Each new acquisition, each successful deal, offered only a fleeting sense of relief before the internal pressure mounted again. He rarely allowed himself to relax, to simply be, because idleness felt like a threat to his carefully constructed identity. His internal monologue was a ceaseless monitor. Are you still on top? What's next? Don't get comfortable. This internal voice, a manifestation of the superego in Freudian terms, was a harsh taskmaster, ensuring that Marcus remained perpetually in pursuit of external validation, lest he confront the deep-seated fear of not being enough. One pivotal moment occurred during a crucial negotiation for a multimillion-dollar deal. Marcus, known for his unyielding demeanor, was met with an equally formidable opponent, a woman named Elena, whose quiet confidence seemed to disarm his usual tactics. Elena, instead of engaging in aggressive posturing, simply listened, observed, and then calmly presented her case with an unexpected blend of logic and genuine empathy. Marcus found himself unnerved. His usual bluster, his carefully rehearsed power plays, seemed to bounce off her like water off a duck's back. He left the meeting feeling strangely exposed, as if his performance had been seen through, not with judgment, but with an almost disconcerting clarity. The mirror, in that moment, had reflected something he hadn't wanted to see: the inadequacy of his purely external strategies when confronted with authentic self-possession. This encounter sparked a quiet crisis within Marcus. He began to notice how his relationships, both professional and personal, were built on the same transactional principles as his business dealings. He gave to receive, he listened to strategize, he loved to possess. His romantic partnerships, while initially exciting, inevitably crumbled under the weight of his emotional unavailability and his constant need to dominate. He would find himself projecting his own insecurities onto his partners, accusing them of being too needy, too emotional, when in reality, they were simply seeking a genuine connection he was incapable of providing. This ego projection, a concept foundational to Jungian psychology, meant that he saw his own disowned vulnerabilities reflected back in others, and in his discomfort, he would push them away. Carl Rogers's humanistic approach sheds light on this phenomenon, emphasizing the critical role of unconditional positive regard in fostering self-worth. Marcus, having received conditional regard throughout his formative years, "I will value you if you are successful, if you are strong," had internalized this conditional self-acceptance. The mirror, then, became a constant report card, a tool for measuring his adherence to these internalized conditions. His self-worth was not intrinsic. It was an elusive prize perpetually just out of reach, always dependent on the next achievement, the next reflection of success. The warrior, when falling in love with this kind of mirror, becomes a slave to appearances. They lose touch with their authentic desires, their true emotional needs, and the rich tapestry of their inner life. The constant battle to maintain the perfect reflection depletes their energy, leading to burnout, cynicism, and a deep, gnawing sense of dissatisfaction, even amidst outward success. The mirror, instead of being a tool for self-reflection and growth, becomes a gilded cage, trapping the warrior in a cycle of performance and external validation. The debate arises: is this pursuit of an idealized reflection an inherent human flaw, or a learned behavior? From a B.F. Skinner perspective, one might argue it's a reinforced behavior, a history of positive reinforcement, praise, success, admiration, for projecting a strong, infallible image, and perhaps negative reinforcement, criticism, perceived failure, abandonment, for showing vulnerability. Albert Bandura's social learning theory would add that we learn these behaviors through observation and modeling, mimicking the successful personas we see in our families, media, and society. The warrior's love for the mirror, then, becomes a meticulously learned and powerfully reinforced attachment to a survival strategy that, while effective in certain external domains, ultimately starves the soul. Yet, beneath this complex psychological dance lies a profound truth. The mirror, while capable of ensnaring, also holds the potential for liberation. It can become a tool for true self-reflection, a surface upon which to project not just our idealized selves, but our shadows, our fears, and our vulnerabilities. The moment the warrior dares to look beyond the surface, to question the narrative reflected back, is the moment the possibility of genuine self-discovery emerges. It is a terrifying prospect, for it demands the dismantling of long-held beliefs and the embrace of discomfort. But it is only by confronting the distorted reflections and seeking the authentic light within that the warrior can truly heal and find a love not for the mirror, but for the magnificent, multifaceted self that lies beyond its shimmering surface. Having explored the warrior's deep identification with their projected image and the mirror's powerful reflection of constructed identity, we arrive at the third, most crucial aspect: the profound transformation that occurs when the warrior truly falls in love with the mirror, not as a tool for validation, but as a portal to authentic self-acceptance. This isn't the narcissistic infatuation with a superficial image, but a radical embrace of the entire self, light and shadow, strength and vulnerability, as reflected in the depths of honest introspection. It is a journey from outward performance to inner peace, from the relentless pursuit of external approval to the serene power of intrinsic worth. Consider the timeless wisdom embedded in the words of Carl Jung. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This profound statement cuts to the very heart of the warrior's ultimate challenge and liberation. The darkness Jung refers to is the shadow, those repressed aspects of ourselves we deem unacceptable, unworthy, or weak. For the warrior who has built their life on strength and invincibility, the shadow often contains fear, insecurity, vulnerability, and the deep yearning for connection. To truly fall in love with the mirror, then, means to confront and integrate this shadow, to bring what is unconscious into the light of conscious awareness, thereby achieving a more complete and whole self. Let us return to Lyra, the formidable lawyer, and Marcus, the empire-building entrepreneur. Their journeys, though distinct, converged on the same precipice of self-discovery. Lyra, after the unsettling encounter with the seasoned lawyer, found herself increasingly restless. The accolades felt emptier, the victories less satisfying. She began to notice the subtle, yet pervasive, anxiety that simmered beneath her controlled exterior. During a quiet weekend, away from the demands of her profession, she stumbled upon a book on mindfulness and emotional intelligence. The concepts, initially alien to her logic-driven mind, began to resonate with an unsettling truth. She started small, with guided meditations which felt awkward and unproductive at first. Her mind, accustomed to relentless activity, resisted stillness. But slowly, painstakingly, she began to observe her thoughts without judgment. She noticed the constant self-criticism, the echoes of her parents' conditional praise, the deep-seated fear of imperfection. This was her shadow, not a monstrous entity, but a wounded child within, crying out for acceptance. One afternoon, during a particularly vulnerable meditation session, she found herself weeping, not tears of sadness, but of profound release. It was the first time in years she had allowed herself to truly feel, to truly acknowledge the emotional landscape she had so meticulously walled off. Similarly, Marcus, after his unnerving encounter with Elena, found his relentless drive yielding diminishing returns. He felt a profound sense of isolation, despite his wealth and success. He began to question the very definition of greatness he had so rigidly pursued. A close friend, observing his growing disquiet, suggested he explore therapy. Marcus, initially resistant, viewing it as a sign of weakness, eventually relented. In therapy, he began to unpack the origins of his insatiable need for control and achievement. He discovered that his drive was not solely born of ambition, but also from a deep-seated fear of abandonment and unworthiness, a fear that had been cleverly masked by his outward displays of power. His therapist, a woman deeply versed in trauma psychology, helped him understand how early experiences of conditional love had shaped his relational patterns. He saw how he had projected his own neediness onto others, how his fear of vulnerability had sabotaged genuine intimacy. One session, his therapist asked him to describe what failure truly meant to him. As he spoke, detailing the terrifying images of being alone, unloved, and insignificant, he realized the depth of the void he had been trying to fill with external success. The mirror, for so long a reflection of his curated triumphs, was now beginning to show him the unvarnished truth of his internal landscape, the wounded child, the insecure lover, the terrified human being beneath the titan. Both Lyra and Marcus embarked on what Jung called the process of individuation, the lifelong psychological process of differentiating the self from the collective and personal unconscious, integrating various aspects of the personality, and developing into a unique, whole individual. This journey often involves confronting the shadow, integrating the anima/animus, the unconscious feminine/masculine qualities within each individual, and moving beyond the rigid confines of the persona. For Lyra, this meant embracing her vulnerability. She began to allow herself to make mistakes, to ask for help, to engage in conversations that weren't strategically planned. She started pursuing hobbies simply for joy, not for achievement, sketching, which she had loved as a child, and hiking in nature, feeling the raw earth beneath her feet instead of the polished floors of a boardroom. She sought out relationships that offered genuine connection, not just status. She began to see her weaknesses not as flaws, but as integral parts of her complex humanity. Her love for the mirror transformed. It was no longer about seeing a perfect image, but about seeing an evolving, authentic self, flaws and all, with compassion and curiosity. Marcus, in turn, began to delegate more, to trust his team, and most importantly, to relinquish some control. He started spending more time with his family, truly present, truly listening. He explored philanthropy, not for public image, but for the genuine desire to contribute beyond his own empire. He began to challenge his ingrained beliefs about success, realizing that true wealth lay in connection, meaning, and inner peace, not just monetary gain. He started practicing stoicism, not as a means to suppress emotion, but to differentiate between what he could control, his reactions, his values, and what he could not, external circumstances, others' opinions. This allowed him to detach from the frantic chase for external validation and find a quiet strength within. The mirror for Marcus became a tool for profound self-reflection, no longer dictating his worth, but reflecting the evolving landscape of his soul, acknowledging both the driven entrepreneur and the compassionate human being. This journey, for both Lyra and Marcus, was not linear. There were moments of doubt, moments of regression, when the old patterns, the old fears would resurface. But with each conscious choice to embrace their authentic selves, to integrate their shadows, and to redefine their relationship with the mirror, they found a deeper, more abiding sense of self-worth. They discovered that true power comes not from an impenetrable facade, but from the radical acceptance of one's complete self. The warrior who truly falls in love with the mirror embraces self-compassion, recognizing that vulnerability is not weakness, but a gateway to genuine connection and resilience. They understand that their value is inherent, not earned through endless achievement or external validation. This profound shift leads to a kind of inner rebirth, where the need for external applause dissipates, replaced by a quiet, unwavering confidence. They find joy in authentic expression, in meaningful relationships, and in a life lived in alignment with their deepest values. The endless striving ceases, replaced by a purposeful engagement with the world, no longer driven by fear, but by a profound sense of peace and intrinsic worth. If you recognize echoes of Lyra or Marcus in your own life, if you've been a warrior tirelessly battling for external validation, pause and consider this. Your true strength lies not in the image you project, but in the courage to explore the depths of your own being. Dare to look beyond the surface of the mirror and confront the shadows you've disowned. Embrace your vulnerabilities, for they are the pathways to authentic connection and true self-love. Begin a practice of stillness, whether it's meditation, mindful walking, or simply quiet reflection. Read, draw, create, engage in activities that nourish your soul, not just your ego. Allow yourself to feel, to truly experience the spectrum of your emotions, without judgment. Your journey towards inner freedom and boundless joy begins the moment you choose to love yourself, fully and unconditionally, in all your magnificent complexity. The power to transform resides within you, waiting to be unleashed, not through conquering the world, but through bravely exploring and embracing your own inner universe. If you find this interesting, or see yourself in the story, please leave a like, subscribe and comment to help our channel feel from you. And if you know someone who needs this video, please send them this video as a necessary share. Thanks for watching. The end.